Good day everyone, it's me again, Janeline A. Cargas from BE Ed 2nd year. So today we were going to tackle lesson 2, the life cycle of human, animals, and plants. So much further ado, let's proceed now to the main discussion. Whether plant or animal, all living things undergo changes as they go through life. This is also true for tiny living things made of only one cell. This presentation is about the changes living things go through during their lifetime. It is all about life cycles. A life cycle includes all the stages a living thing goes through from birth to death. All living things have a beginning and they almost die. What happens between birth and death varies from one kind of living thing to another. Most living things have one thing in common. They begin life as a tiny single cell. The simplest form of life never grow beyond a single cell. The life cycle of these simple life forms is really just a matter of growing a bit larger and then dividing into two smaller cells. But most of the plants and animals we know have much more complicated life cycles. We are going to examine how life cycles differ among some plants and animals. Human life cycle. Let's start with you. You are a human being, or at least I hope you are. You started out as a tiny egg inside your mother and you began to change when that tiny egg began to split. It split and split and split and continued splitting until it split millions and millions of times. Before long, body parts began to form. You began to get legs, arms, a head, and a whole bunch of organs. And over time, you look more and more like a human. After about 9 months of cell splitting and development inside your mother, you were born. You entered the first stage of life as an infant. You were pretty helpless at first, but you continued to grow and get stronger. The human life cycle starts with the baby stage. When babies are born, they can't do anything for themselves. Up until they are 6 months old, babies don't eat normal foods. They only drink milk. It isn't like the milk you might put on your cereal. It has all the things a baby needs to grow properly. Babies need lots of sleep. They don't usually sleep all the way through the night, but they will often sleep during the day as well. Babies can talk. When something is wrong, they will let people know by crying. In the next stage of your life cycle, you became a toddler. That's when you got into lots of trouble. You learned to walk and talk, and you probably got into all sorts of things. You probably also said some things you should not have said. Then you entered childhood. This is where you are now and where you will stay for a few more years. During childhood, you learn more and more about taking care of yourself. You will become less dependent on your parents by learning how to do all sorts of things, from riding a bike to reading and writing. As a child, you can now feed yourself, go to the bathroom by yourself, and dress yourself. The toddler stage is when a child is starting to toddle, which means bubbly walking. The toddler stages are from ages 1 to 3. As well as learning to walk, toddlers go through lots of other changes. Their teeth start to grow. They start learning to talk. Toddlers start learning to eat lots of foods and to feed themselves. Toddlers still can't do many things for themselves and need lots of help from their grown-ups. In childhood stage, you are learning to be independent, which means there are more things you can do on your own. What can you do on your own now that you used to need to help with? Talk about it back. An important part of this stage is starting school. This stage is full of lots of changes and children learn to do lots of things such as reading, writing, counting, riding a bike, and swimming. You will stay at this stage for several years until you enter adolescence. This is the stage when children rapidly grow into adulthood. This stage is also called your teen years. The teenage stage is from ages 13 to 19. Teenagers are getting ready to be adults and are becoming independent. Teenagers' body change a lot during this stage. They get taller and start to look more like adults. These changes are because of things called hormones. Hormones are things inside your body that make your body change. Because they are growing so quickly, some teenagers eat a lot. Many teenagers like to sleep for a very long time. Some teenagers can be a bit grumpy at times. The adult stage is when many people choose to have and raise children. These children will also go through a life cycle and change with each stage. When an animal produces more of its own kind, it helps ensure that kind of animal will remain on Earth. If a kind of animal dies off faster than it can reproduce, it becomes extinct and disappears from Earth. Being an adult is also called being a grown-up. There are a lot of things that grown-ups can do. A lot of adults get jobs and live on their own, with friends or with a partner. At some point, many adults have children of their own, which starts the human life cycle again. The adult stage is the longest, going on for many years. In fact, the average adult stage lasts more than 50 years, and adult lifespan seems to get longer and longer. Towards the end of your adult stage, you will become what many people call a senior citizen. This is the last stage of the human life cycle. Old stage is the later stage of being an adult. Older people retire, which means they stop working. This means they have plenty of time to enjoy themselves. They have find a new hobby or spend extra time with their grandchildren. Some old people have a gray or white hair. Sometimes, old people might move more slowly because their joints and muscles ache. Older people's eyes might not work as well, so they might need glasses for reading or seeing far away. All humans go through the same life cycle. They are small at the start of their life. Over time, they grow bigger and their bodies change. When they are grown up, they often have children of their own. All human beings' body undergoes several changes and development throughout their lifespan, and food acts like the fuel needed for all these changes. Proper nutrition, exercise, and friendly environment ensures a healthy human being in all stages of their life. Let's proceed to animal life cycles. Even small animals like insects go through life cycles. Most insects go through 3 or 4 stages during their life cycle. The change an insect goes through during its life is called metamorphosis. All insects begin as eggs. During the stage after the egg stage, known as the larva stage, many insects look much different than they do as adults. As a larva, many insects eat huge amounts of food. They grow larger and then enter a stage where they are not active. For some insects, this stage is spent inside a protective covering called a cocoon. Other insects spend this stage inside a hard case called a chrysalis. When insects leave this stage, known as the pupa, they enter the adult stage of their life. As adults, female and male insects mate. The female then lays eggs and the life cycles of many new insects begin. Some animals lay eggs with shells as the first stage of their life cycle. Birds and reptiles lay eggs that are covered by protective shells. The eggs hatch when the baby animal breaks through the protective shells. The young animals that emerge has many of the same features as the adult. Other animals, like frogs and fish, lay eggs without shells in jelly-like clumps. These eggs are usually laid in water. When a frog egg hatches, a creature called a tadpole emerges. The tadpole looks more like a fish than a frog. It slowly changes during its life cycle, growing legs, developing lungs, and losing its tail. Soon, it looks like a frog. Fish eggs, on the other hand, hatch into tiny fish called fry. which move closely resemble adult fish. Other animals give birth to live babies. Some of these babies are born helpless and blind. Rabbits, mice, and kittens are like this and require a lot of care from their mothers. Marsupials or pouch animals such as kangaroos give birth to very tiny, helpless babies and they keep in a special pouch until the babies develop enough to survive outside the pouch. Other baby animals are born ready to walk and run. A newborn giraffe is 6 feet or 2 meters tall at birth and it is able to walk. Animals begin life either from an egg or as a baby that is born ready for life. Baby animals grow and change into adolescent and eventually become adults. Adult animals look for a mate to begin the life cycle all over again with new babies. Each type of animals has their own unique life cycles. When babies are born or hatch from eggs, some look much like their parents, like kittens and horses. Other baby animals look much different from their parents, like tadpoles, which turn into frogs. Animals that change dramatically during their life cycle go through metamorphosis. For example, a mother butterfly lays eggs that hatch into baby caterpillars. As the caterpillar eats, it grows bigger and bigger, and eventually it is ready to transform into a butterfly. The change takes place inside a chrysalis where the caterpillar's body changes into a butterfly. When the butterfly comes out on the chrysalis, it is ready to find a mate and lay eggs. Then, the cycle can start all over again. Next is plant life cycles. Most plants begin their life cycle as seeds. It is hard to imagine that a giant oak tree was once a small acorn. When it is first sprouts, it is called a seedling. But over the year, it grows larger and becomes a young tree called a sapling. After a few more years, it becomes an adult tree capable of making seeds or acorns that will grow into a new trees. Plants are not born and they do not hatch. Instead, a seed germinates or sprouts to form a new plant. Some plant life cycle lasts hundreds of years. A Bristol cold pine can live well over 1,000 years. Plants with life cycles that are several years long, such as a tree, a grass, and a shrub are called perennials. Other plants, called annuals, live through only a single season. Many garden plants, including peas, beans, corns, and tomatoes are annuals. Plants start as seeds. When a seed starts to grow, we call that germination. When a plant is mature, it produces flowers. Flowers are fertilized sometimes by animals like honeybees or sometimes by wheat. After a flower is fertilized, most plants make seeds in the form of fruit. The seed inside the fruit can be planted and grown into a new plant, and the cycle starts all over again. Some living things go through their life cycle quickly. Like male drone ants that live for only 3 weeks, other living things have much longer life cycles, like some types of pine trees that can live over 5,000 years. All life cycles have a few things in common. They start with seeds, eggs, or live birth, then involve multiple steps including reproduction, and then they end in death. The life cycle repeats for millions of years. That's the end of my topic about the life cycle of human, animals, and plants. Thank you so much for joining me on my virtual report. Bye!